Eros means the experience, number one, that it's good right now. And number two, that I have purpose, that I have need, that I have meaning, that I have a gift to give that's desperately needed by the whole. Those are the two dimensions of Eros, right? Number one, the irreducible goodness of being, the unbearable goodness of being, right? Number one. Number two, the unbearable necessity, the need for me, right? For my life, right? For who I am, right? I'm desperately needed. So madly delighted to be here. And it's really tears in my eyes. You know, we got together right before the broadcast with the inner team that does so much fantastic, creative, joy, work, vision in creating One Mountain. And I was just so happy to see everyone and the choice that we make to kind of be here together, right? To know each other, right? To love each other, right? To be together and to be the revolution, right? To stand at the very core of the revolution as a band of outrageous lovers and to envision what's possible in the world. And literally, friends, in every generation, there has been what the interior sciences call the Chevraya, right? And the Chevraya means the holy band, right? The holy band, right? The band of outrageous lovers. Sometimes it's translated from the Aramaic as the companions. And the companions are usually a group of, sometimes it's 3 people, sometimes it's 8, sometimes it's a few dozen, who are at the core of a transformation of consciousness that is living at the periphery of society, right? It's not in the center of the mainstream. It's at the periphery, right? Imagine at the time of Jesus, right, in Jerusalem, right? The center of society was the Roman procurator Pontius Pilate, and the wealthy and the powerful, right, even in the Jewish community, were very much Hellenistic, meaning they had, in some sense, assimilated and abandoned the vision of the revolution for the sake of power, for the sake of a kind of ephemeral but seductive in the sense of unholy seduction. The seductive call of the siren, of superficial status and superficial success, of instrumental climbing that actually can never bring us joy, that actually leaves us empty, that actually leaves us hollow, right? A form of pseudo-eros, which leaves us with incessant cravings that can't be filled by the pallid fare and the unnourishing, almost repulsive taste in its aftertaste of the utter bloated consumption of pseudo-eros. And then there was this band in Jerusalem, happened to be a bunch of Jews gathered around, right, a teacher. And they were all teachers, actually, right? In the new vision, they were all teachers. And they gathered, and there was a crucifixion. And at the crucifixion, how many people were there? So few, right? So few, right? The parties were going on, and the revelry went on, and the powers of Rome went on. And that band held strong. They had a vision. They had a vision of a planetary Pentecost, to use the Christian word, right? We call it today a planetary awakening in love through unique self-symphonies. Barbara Marx Hubbard, my dear evolutionary homemate, and I know you're listening right now, Barbara, right? We called together that planetary Pentecost a vision of a planetary awakening in unique self-symphonies. And that group of people, those few dozen people, they come together, right? And they hold a vision. They hold a vision of something that's possible. They hold a vision of the possibility of possibility, of a world that can't quite yet be seen, right? Of a fragrance of a new human and a new humanity, of the possibility of Homo sapien, right? Engaged in rivalrous conflict governed by win-lose metrics, becoming Homo Amor. And it's a vision of Eros. Because pseudo-Eros itself is the very source of existential risk. And I want to share with you in a couple of minutes just a vision of this Eros. But before that, I just want to feel, if I can, with permission, everyone, what it means to come together. What it means to come together, and why are we coming together? We're coming together because we're poised in this moment between utopia and dystopia. Literally poised between utopia and dystopia. Poised between a world more beautiful than we could possibly imagine, right? In a world that's crushed, right? In which upgraded algorithms control in dystopian metaverses, right? As Facebook becomes Meta, right? The world decided, Facebook's not a good thing. And Facebook decided the world's not a good thing. Facebook's response was, well, actually, the world's not a good thing. Let's actually get rid of the world and go virtual. Got to think about that. What does it mean to enter a metaverse, which is disembodied at its core, in which every single movement is measured computationally? So you've literally commodified all of reality. Every move you make, every breath you take, will be watching you, will be tracking you, will be computing and measuring and quantifying, and every single move you make becomes transactional in the service not of a greater good, but in the service of direct or indirect profit for the people who are actually controlling the metaverse. Wow. Pseudo-Eros in the extreme. That's one dystopian vision of the future. But there's other dystopian visions, right, which involve actual existential risk, which means there's actually no future at all. Right? We're at the last generation of humanity. And those dystopian visions are real. And there's other visions that involve catastrophic risk. And catastrophic risk means massive suffering or death to billions. And at the core of these risks, right, is actually a set of structural factors that are happening right now, which involve extraction models, extracting resources from the earth that it took billions of years to create. It involves exponential growth curves, which are at place in order to meet rivalrous conflict governed by win-lose metrics. It involves developing now certain forms of AI, artificial intelligence technology that should not be developed, which is being developed anyways because there's a race to the bottom, multipolar traps. I know you're going to develop it, so I better do it so that you don't. Win-lose metrics. And all of it is happening as everyone's focused on the short term. All the long-term structural things are at play and creating the seeds of potential destruction. And everyone looks away. And everyone looks away not because they're bad, because no one quite knows what to do about it. No one quite knows what to address it, because there's not actually a shared grammar of value We're not living in a shared story of value that would allow us to overcome the global intimacy disorder, which undermines our ability for global resonance, which then undermines our ability for global coordination, which is what we need in order to enact global solutions to every one of these global existential risks. But at the core, what's driving it? Underneath all of it, what's driving it? What's driving it is a collapse of Eros, right? A collapse of Eros. And a collapse of Eros means that I live in a shared story of value in which I experience, in that shared story of value, I have an immediate and direct experience of the goodness of reality. I have an immediate and direct experience of the beauty of reality. I have an immediate and direct experience of the truth of reality. I understand that everything's connected to everything, and that those everythings that are connected are not its, ITS. It's not interconnected its, but it's the interconnected, pulsing, throbbing, living organism. And that every one of us is a cell in that organism, even as we're irreducibly unique and individuated. And that each of us are individuated expressions of that organism with irreducible dignity, and each of us have a gift to give that addresses a unique need in that larger organism. And that unique need lives in our unique circle of intimacy and influence and can be addressed directly by us. And that addressing, that gift that's ours to give, is the great joy of our lives. That's what Eros means. Eros means the experience, number one, that it's good right now. And number two, that I have purpose, that I have need, that I have meaning, that I have a gift to give that's desperately needed by the whole. Those are the two dimensions of Eros. Right? Number one, the irreducible goodness of being, the unbearable goodness of being. Right? Number one. Number two, the unbearable necessity, the need for me, right? For my life, right? For who I am, right? I'm desperately needed. That's what Eros means. When Eros isn't there, you have pseudo-Eros. When you can't live in that story of value, you have pseudo-Eros, right? And that experience is what we're going to come together this summer to talk about. We're going to come together this summer, and someone maybe will put a link in the chat box, and we're going to spend 7 days talking about how we can address existential risk by enacting a new story of value, which is a new story of Eros. And we're not going to be doing any marketing for the summer. We're going to send the same mailing every day, which is show up. Show up because you're needed. Show up because it matters. Show up because you care. Show up because there's going to be an unspeakable field of joy like you've never experienced before, like I've never experienced before, because we're going to create a new possibility, right? And we're going to talk about, what does sex have to do with it? What's the relationship between the sexual, right, and the erotic? What does love have to do with it? What's the relationship between sex, love, and Eros? What does value have to do with it? What's the relationship between sex, love, Eros, and value? We're going to be looking at each of our sacred autobiographies and my own personal story and see how this lives in my personal story and how we could actually, each of us, write as the band of outrageous lovers a new chapter in our personal story that actually changes the course of the whole. Okay? That's what it means to be what the Zohar calls in the 13th century the Chevraya. That's how we began today, right? The band of outrageous lovers, right? The revolutionaries. Because when you step in as a revolutionary, when you step in and say, I'm not going to be Homo sapien, I'm going to be Homo Amor. And Barbara and I used to say to each other, we would call each other 5 times a day. We would communicate for the last 5 years of Barbara's life. We communicated 5 times a day, every day. And we'd say to each other, are you on the other side with me? Are you ready to go to the other side? One of the original iconoclasts. Icon is an idol. Iconoclast, someone who breaks the idols. One of the original iconoclasts is named Ibrahim in Islamic. He's a major figure in the original sacred text of the Bible. And Abraham's called Abraham the Hebrew. And Hebrew means Ivri, the one who crossed to the other side. So I want to just ask you a question, and if you can, maybe we'll meet in the chat box for a second. Are you willing to cross to the other side? Are you willing to step into the mystical, interior scientific significance of your life, in which you say, I'm joining the band of outrageous lovers, right? And I'm going to actually make my life matter so much because I understand that I live in the field of the whole, and I actually have a glimpse, a fragrance of enlightened consciousness, which every great system of interior science realized, which means I actually experience that the whole actually lives in me. So I live in the intimate universe. I live in the whole. It's all interconnected, but I actually have this realization, the sense the whole actually also lives in me. It's all in me. It's why I can feel the whole. It's why I can do mathematics, the unreasonable effectiveness of mathematics, how a mathematician can stretch and feel the whole cosmos backwards and forwards and express it in a mathematical formula, because the whole lives in me. I live in the intimate universe, and the intimate universe lives in me. That's what Homo Amor knows. That's what the outrageous lover knows. So I just want to just so gently ask you, right? Are you willing to play a larger game, but for real, right? To actually step in and say, I'm in this band of outrageous lovers, and I'm going to go out of my way. I'm going to inconvenience my small self. I'm going to inconvenience my contracted self. I'm going to inconvenience my ego self, right? Right? I'm going to get underneath the public game that I'm playing, right? I'm going to get underneath my attacking, right? I just saw a blog of somebody, right? Someone sent me yesterday, who basically spends his time attacking influencers in order to become, but he doesn't tell you that he's trying to become an influencer, right? So in other words, the pseudo-erotic kind of like craving for attention, right? As the person kind of self-righteously, Joseph McCarthy style, attacks influencers, right? Dogpiles information, distorts, lies, right? I was reading this blog, someone who sets themselves, right? But really what they're doing is, it's actually a desperate move of pseudo-eros. I'm going to attack influencers because I desperately crave to be like them. And everyone's got their hidden little strategy, right? Can I give that up? Can I give up that small, contracted, coiled, desperate craving and actually step into the goodness of my life, the goodness of my unique self, the unbearable joy of my existence, and the knowing that actually I do have a gorgeous contribution to make. I've got a song to sing, right? A poem to write, a way of laughing, living, loving, and being and becoming in the world that never was, is, or will be other than through me. And my instrument is desperately needed in the unique self symphony as I play and listen to all the other instruments, and as I feel the interconnectivity of the all with the all. Right? That's Eros. Right? That's Eros. And we get a fragrance of it in sexuality. We get a fragrance of it in creativity. We get a fragrance of it in transformation. Right? We get a fragrance of it in innovation. We get a fragrance of it in service. Right? Like, wow. Right? So are we ready? Right? And I want to ask you, band of outrageous lovers, tears in my eyes. Right? Are we ready? Right? Where are we in Jerusalem? Are we with the Roman procurators? Right? In the games of politics and surface power? Often we're disguising ourselves as the righteous rescuers when we're the predators. Are we speaking pretty words and dressing ourselves up with the charades of pretty costumes of righteousness, but actually we're driven by a kind of naked emptiness? Or are we willing to step into our Eros and feel the pulse of reality quite literally moving through us, to go on a psychedelic journey of unbearable joy where I feel the joy pulse of cosmos awake and alive in me? And when I'm no longer in pseudo-eros. I step into eros. And when we democratize that experience, right? It's not just the experience of a master here or a master there. And all masters are, by the way, broken, and all masters are imperfect vessels for the light. So when I say master, I don't mean the perfect one. I mean those who are willing to lay their lives on the line, right, to feel that pulse. And that's all of us. It's not one master. It's not two. We got to move beyond the old vision of the master. We got to become masters together. We've got to create a unique self-symphony. It's not about Jesus anymore, right? It's about the unique self-symphony. But the unique self-symphony, right, is often at the periphery of culture. Are we willing, right, to actually move from the feasts in Jerusalem 2,000 years ago? And in the Jerusalem of today, Jerusalem means Yir'ah Shalem, full consciousness. Are we ready to actually stand by the cross, or the Magen David, right, or the Buddhist symbol, or the secular humanist symbol? But are we ready to stand in value? Are we ready to join the band of outrageous lovers? To know that actually my transformation is the transformation of the whole. That's the experience. That's the knowing of Homo Amor. The knowing of Homo Amor is that, and here it is, that reality is evolution. One, right? Evolution is the process of becoming. Two, underneath becoming is being, the utter goodness of cosmos. Three, four, becoming is the process of transformation. Five, reality is a series of transformations. Six, we've come now to the human level of reality. And the human level of reality has gone through transformation after transformation. Many of them have brought unbearable joy. But our exponential technologies have now also brought us to a place of unbearable risk to our very existence. Seven, that requires a new transformation. Like always, crisis is an evolutionary driver. And crisis is always a crisis of intimacy. Eight, and the crisis of intimacy today, this global intimacy disorder, is that we're not living together, 7.8 billion of us, in a shared story of value. 9, so we're clashing into each other in win-lose metrics, in desperate moves, right, to be seen. Desperate gambits for power and status. But we're doing it now with exponentialized, weaponized technologies. 10, and those technologies are available to rogue players, to non-state actors. There's a race to the bottom. We're producing that which can destroy us, right? 11, how do we shift that? We shift that by articulating a new story of value. And that new story of value is not held by an elite, but it's actually lives. 12, it lives, right? The new story of value lives in the new human and the new humanity. We actually birth a new structure of consciousness in the world. 12, that's what we did with democracy. Democracy 1,000 years ago didn't exist. It was a joke. There was no possibility that actually there would be governance through something called democracy. But today it exists. That's how the evolution of consciousness takes place. 13, this new story of value, the emergence of Homo sapien as Homo Amor, where we actually understand that the whole lives in us even as we live in the whole, and that my transformation is the leading edge of evolution. Right? 14, right? Because who am I? I am evolution. Right? Evolution is not a fact out there. Evolution is a process that is the actual structure of cosmos that I am an expression of. Right? The evolutionary impulse doesn't live out there. The evolutionary impulse lives in me. 15. Right? And so I'm a unique expression of the evolutionary impulse. And so the process of evolution, which is a series of transformations, is taking place in me. 16. And my transformation is the transformation of the whole. Right? My transformation transforms the whole. Like, wow. Can we actually begin to feel it? My transformation actually transforms the whole. Right? 18. And if I'm willing to be one of those who joins the band of outrageous lovers and says, I'm actually willing to lay my life down, not to give it up, but to live it in a way where I actually understand that I'm the superhero. I'm actually the superhero. It's not Superman. I'm the superhero. One of the things I love about superhero movies is that superheroes are becoming more human. more flawed, more complex. They're holding the holy and broken hallelujah, right? So 19, I might have skipped 18, but let's make it 19. 19 is I'm the superhero. I'm in the band of outrageous lovers. I'm stepping up and stepping in. I'm waking up. I'm growing up. I'm showing up. And I actually understand, right, that as Homo Amor, my transformation matters. That number 20, my transformation is the transformation of the whole. Now, when that realization, right, moves from a very small band of the elite, right, the masters in every generation who understood that they were axis mundi, that they actually connected, they were what the Sufis called the pole that connected heaven and earth. When that realization moves beyond an elite group of masters, and we actually manifest together this new human and new humanity, which expresses itself as a planetary awakening in love through unique self-symphonies, right? 21, meaning the democratization of enlightenment. We join the band of outrageous lovers together, existential risk disappears, right? Because the extraction model recedes, because the multipolar traps all of a sudden seem ridiculous, because we step into a shared story of value, because we can actually stand in value and challenge, right, that which is against the greater good. That we can actually, for example, create a new Digital Communications Act, like we did 100 years ago when radio began in the world, which actually transformed social media, right, into what the old legal precedents demanded. Brandeis's, right, decision, right, and Frankfurter's decision in the courts in America, right, that actually, just like radio needed to be for the public good, social media is not just a privatized, neutralized, right, effort at technology. It's actually a public service that has to be for the public good. We can actually, Digital Communications Act, right, adopted universally around the world, right, which changes social media from the divisive, polarizing force, right, into a force that's for the public good. It's a complex maneuver, utterly necessary, Digital Communications Act. There's 1,000 things we can do when we have, right, a shared grammar of value, right? We can do this. We can do this. So every week we come together here on One Mountain, right, to speak this revolution. Okay? Wow. And that's where we're going to get together this summer. You can join us online, but if you can, actually get a ticket, right? Make the effort. Join us in person, because you know that your being there matters. Okay? The two people that run this festival, right, put, Shahat, right, and Claire put thousands of hours into it, right? And they get paid nothing. It's a joke, right? And that there's so many people here, right, who put thousands of hours into Joyce. I didn't see if Joyce was here today. This incredible woman, Joyce, right, who's done this incredible work and gathering transcripts and editing them and pointing us and learning how it should be, right? Now there's just incredible work of love, right, of this outrageous lover, Joyce, right, which I just celebrate today and I bow before. Right, in mad devotion and mad honor. Right, oh my God. Right, there's so many outrageous lovers here. Are we ready to play a larger game? And I'm going to turn to the chat box if I can, to all of us. Are we ready to play a larger game? Are we ready to play a larger game? Are we ready to play a larger game? Right? Are we ready? Right? Are we ready to actually be the band of outrageous lovers and to participate, right, together, right, in the evolution of love? Right? That's what we're here for. Right? And next week we're going to actually have a kind of, a beautiful, Krista Josepha called it a rally for the festival. I'm actually not going to give a talk on existential risk. I'm doing that right now, but we'll actually take questions and answers and talk about what it's going to be in, and we'll just dance together. We'll be in the energy and build this festival together. Right? I'm so excited to be with you. I'm so excited to be with you. I'm so excited to be with you right now. And just I'm madly honored when I think about Claire and Shad, when I think about, right, Krista Josepha, when I think about David, when I think about Jamie, when I think about, right, Jacqueline, when I think about Suzette, when I think about Benjamin, right, when I think about Zohar, right, Kirsten, right, and just so many of us, and I'm sure I apologize, there's 1,000 names, right, there's such depth, right, there's such unbearable depth. Right, Terry, I think about Terry Nelson, right? We've been missing you, Tom. I think about Tom. It's been a decade, brother Tom. Oh my God, right? There's so many people who are doing so much. Elena, welcome, right? Right? Oh my God, Shanti, right? Unbelievable, right? Beyond imagination, right? We can do this, right? In this generation, right? This is ours to do. When I say ours to do, in concert with all the great people and forces around the world, recognizing in devotion the wonderful, gorgeous people. But there's not a lot of us, right? Right? There's a few people who can actually see around the corner, right? And this is not a way of grandiose, right, claiming. This is a desperate, beautiful, radically joyous, awake realization that we need to be like Da Vinci in the Renaissance. And I've pointed out 1,000 times that Paul Tillich, right, the cultural critic, right, and thinker, points out that there were about 1,000 people at the core of the Renaissance. This is the moment in which there's a crisis of intimacy. And that crisis needs to be met by a new evolution of intimacy. The crisis is an evolutionary driver, and the new emergent needs to be Homo Amor, a new experience of what it means to be a human being, right? The move from pseudo-eros to eros, where we all gather in the public square, right? And we seduce ourselves to our own greatness, right? We seduce ourselves to our own greatness. We confess our greatness. Something like that. David, right, give us the code. This was a big intention setting. Give us the code for this week. Take us inside.
So here's this week's evolutionary love code. There's no love without seduction. Seduction is a first principle and first value of cosmos. Wisdom is to distinguish between holy seduction and unholy seduction. Holy seduction seduces us upwards. Unholy seduction seduces us downwards. In unholy seduction, I seduce you to violate your appropriate boundary for the sake of my greed. Holy seduction is, I seduce you to transcend the boundary of your limitation, of your contraction, for the sake of your and reality's deepest need. Everyone is seduced. The question is to trust the right person to seduce you, or the right people, or music, or art, or dharma. So with that, I turn my word back to you, beloved Dr. Marc.
Thank you.